Good to have Allen back out on the field today.
Yeah, it's always good having him out there. He's a talent, but it's the leadership part that we miss when he's not out there.
What do you think of how Zach Tom came in midway through for a debut?
Yeah, I actually wasn't real focused on him when I watched the film, but he had a nice second effort play on the lone touchdown of the day. He needs to get a little bigger, I think. He's still kind of a tweener weight-wise, but he's a high-effort kid. He's a smart kid, cares about it, and we'll see how much he's used moving forward.
What did Luke Getsy mean to you when he was here, and what's the biggest thing you think he's going to bring to that Chicago locker room and offense?
Well, I mean, I don't really want to speculate on the second part, but the first part, a close friend and a guy who was a confidant. A lot of long conversations, long after the day had been done. Good hangouts outside the facility. Really, enjoyed his wife Tina and the kids. He's got four little rugrats running around. He's just a great human being. He's a great father, husband, phenomenal coach. He's fun in the room. He was younger than me slightly. Different stages of life though, for sure. But I loved our constant dialogue during the weeks, and loved being coached by him, and just kind of watching his development. Go from kind of a quality control guy all the way up to offensive coordinator, and the next stop for him is probably head coach.
Aaron, you and Matt both, since the game, have commented about just getting 28 and 33 more involved and more touches. How do you do it?
Well, I think you got to stick with the run a little bit more. I think maybe reacted. Nothing against Matt. Matt probably said the same thing, but we maybe reacted to the score a little bit, and we were running the ball well. I think we ran it like about six a clip. So we got to just stick with the runs, make sure we're getting our attempts where we want it to be, because that means one of those guys is touching the ball probably. And we have a lot of different packages where they're in the game at different spots, and just finding ways to get them to football a few more times.
When you're working with a rookie receiver, is there anything that you're looking for specifically to know that the moment's not too big for them at that position? And what do you think as a whole of Christian and Romeo?
I think just the same thing I said after the game. We got to be patient. We got to be patient with them. The most important thing we're going to be harping on is the preparation and the fundamentals and the little things. And the jump happens when you don't become a robot anymore. You understand the why and the what. Why are we doing what we're doing, and what are we trying to accomplish? And it takes a while for anybody. There's been a few guys who've kind of used training camp and the OTAs and have been maybe a little ahead in the beginning. There's some guys who haven't gotten most of the first year. So we'll see where they fall, but you got to be patient. They're talented guys. We just got to keep giving them opportunities, and when they get the chance to make plays, they got to make the plays.
What do you think is the biggest thing that you'll need to be patient with as they progress as rookies?
The fact that they're rookies. I mean, there's going to be mistakes. So hold them accountable and prepare and communicate as well as we can. But it's not thrown to older guys out there. It's young guys who are very talented, who are going to make some great plays by not actually knowing what they're doing sometimes, and there's going to be times where they don't make the right reaction, and just having patience with that, because I think by the end of the year they'll have it figured out.
Aaron, what does this rivalry with the Bears mean to you?
Well, I love the history of this game, and when I got to the squad, Chicago was beating us on the all-time record, and now we're up by 8, I believe. So that does mean a lot to me.
Aaron, going back to the rookies, where is the best place for them to earn your trust? Is it in a game, on a practice field, in the meeting room?
All of it. When you can answer questions quickly, when you can understand the why and the what, and then we're going to go out and execute, that is a great way to earn trust, whether you're a first-year player or a 10th-year player.
A couple years with Matt, there's been a big jump in the offensive production week 1 to week 2. What do you think has gone into that in years past? Do you expect the same this week?
I don't really have an answer that I'm going to share publicly on that.
Just to
doing something on just kind of the randomness of injuries. I know you got hurt, you got the toe last year while you were working out at home. I'm just wondering, even with all the advances in technology and guys taking care of their bodies, how much are you kind of at the mercy of luck when it comes to that in terms of routine staying healthy?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some of that. There's some field conditions too. I know one of the team, Kansas City, I think, was talking about field conditions. Where were they at? In Arizona, that they were upset about. There's a few fields around the league that don't have the best surfaces. There's some artificial surfaces that aren't great. There's some natural grass surfaces that aren't great. So I'm not sure what the best fix is, if there's a standard that you can do, because every stadium has different play on it. Some have high school games on it, some have college games on it. Some have, they host a lot of events and concerts and different things. So we're just kind of at the mercy of those people taking care of those facilities. For the most part, I think across the board, there's some really good surfaces, but there's probably 4 or 5 that it seems like would have some higher injury numbers on them.
Aaron, going back to patience, remember your rookie year when Brett got pretty frustrated and he and I got in an argument in front of your locker? He seemed exasperated and sometimes lost during that season. How do you go about managing your frustration? Because you know that there's going to be more rookie mistakes, there's going to be more mental mistakes, whether it's linemen, receivers. What's your approach to make sure that you don't let those get to you and maybe not lead the way you want to?
Well, I need to have an outlet. So, I spend time with a lot of time off the field with, probably 5 or 6 guys. And so having an outlet to talk through any frustrations is important. But the most important thing is to communicate with them and figure out what style works best for them. Direct communication, though, is always kind of cuts through the uneasiness and the anxiety and any of the gray area in the things that we do. The guys know I'm going to hold them accountable because I believe in them. I've said in camp, if I'm not talking to you, that means that you might be pretty far out on a limb and need to start reeling in a little bit. But there's a standard that I'm going to hold these guys to because I believe in them. But also there's a patience that comes with the inexperience. And I think I've learned how to balance that. But the direct conversations are the best way. These are good kids. They really are. They want to please. They want to do the right thing. They care about it. But I'm going to figure out a way to continue to get on the same frequency with them. But at the core of it is just communication, making sure that I'm saying the same thing that Vrabel's saying, that Stano's saying, and Matt's saying. And at the end of the day, that's how that trust is built, through the direct communication.
Do you and the coaches talk about, I understand there's certain non-negotiables that you have to be able to do in this offense. If you can't do them, you can't be on the field. But do you and Matt and those guys also talk about things that, okay, these things, we can't ask these guys to do these yet because they're going to screw them up? Or how does that part of the process go?
Well, we don't want to put them in situations where they're going to have a low percentage of success. We want to be smart about how we're fostering that confidence. And we don't want to put them in situations where they haven't done something or they might not feel confident, 100% confident doing things. So we're going to be really wary of some of those. At the same time, that has to be kind of balanced by we got to let these guys play, and we got to see what they got. We got to let them open the game and run a go route and see if he can come down with it, and then come back to him and see if he can run another one and come down with it. So it's a balance there. We don't want to put them in a position where they're high likely of maybe not getting it right, but we also want to let them in the moment and feel the pressure and the anxiety and the expectation of being in that moment and see how they respond, because that's how we're going to know what kind of guys we got.
Along the lines of different communication styles, Matt said that you've done a good job in his view of pushing the rookies, but also kind of putting an arm around them when they need that. How do you determine what's called for in the moment, whether it's to kind of give them some tough love or to be confident?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's the general energy around the situation. So sometimes you got to kind of jump a guy's ass when it feels like the entire practice or environment is very, it's kind of sunken and there's low energy and we're just kind of going through the motions. Sometimes getting on somebody, everybody else has to kind of perk up and go, okay, now we're getting serious almost. Because I've always felt, for me, that it's happened. If a coach jumps somebody in my, sphere of influence, in my area, he's basically talking to all of us. So every now and then that needs to be done. But for the most part, the best thing to do is off to the side, in the cafeteria, in the locker room, in a meeting room, put your arm around a guy and say, hey, look, this is what we need from you. Next time this comes up, I really need you to be thinking this when you break the huddle and this when you get the line of scrimmage and get this look at the snap of the ball and make this reaction. So the most important thing for a jump to happen is to not repeat the same mistake twice. So these guys are going to make a lot of mistakes. The guys that don't repeat the same mistakes, we have more opportunities.
How much can you actually learn about Chicago's defense when they have a game like they did Sunday, basically in once?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think there's always stuff to learn from that, from preseason games, from previous stints as a coordinator. But yeah, it was sloppy field, especially there at the end.
Along those lines, I was going to ask about that as well. But also the Indy game in 2020, do you go back to that game because it's the same coordinator, or is the personnel just make that game irrelevant to you?
Coaches love to go back to those games. I find it much harder because you're not looking at players you're really going to play against. But look, the more pictures you can get where you're not flooding your mind and bogging yourself down with TMI, too much information, I think that's a good thing. But yeah, of course, I went back and looked at that game and just kind of saw what we did there and what was successful. First half was a pretty nice half for us. Second half, not as good.
Aaron, 2018, I don't think we learned until the following spring that you played that season with the fracture and the MCL sprain. When you went back in the second half, did you know it was that bad? And how much did that affect your throwing and mobility for the weeks to come? I mean, I remember the Jets game. It looked like you started looking like yourself at that overtime.
That was late in the year.
Yeah, December.
Yeah, I felt pretty good. Then we went to Detroit, and one of the backers had a weird tackle on me on the sidelines and kind of re-injured my MCL. But, yeah, that was frustrating. Season for sure, health-wise, obviously, a lot of change. That was the year that Mike got fired. We were, 6-win team, not very good, had some really rough ones. So overall, that was a really tough year. I felt like I needed to be out there and battle through it. Some games I felt terrible. Towards the end of the year and at various times in the middle of the year, I felt okay. But the second half of the Chicago game was a lot of adrenaline. And contrary to popular belief, after what I said on a podcast, there was absolutely zero pain pills that I took at halftime of that 2018 game.
Aaron, in terms of game day communication, how much easier is it going to be at home Sunday versus on the road in Minnesota, getting on the same page with your line and receivers to execute?
Look, I didn't feel like we had a lot of communication errors in Minnesota. It's a loud stadium, but it's definitely not as loud as the Metrodome used to be. So I felt like we were on the same page. Obviously at home, it's easier with some of the verbal stuff and some of the checker me's and subtle adjustments and then dummy calls that we can kind of add in, and obviously using the cadences to our advantage. But I didn't feel like communication was an issue for us on Sunday.
Aaron, you guys are really good at not letting one loss turn into a losing streak. Is there anything to that? Can you put your finger on why that?
I think for a lot of us, we just haven't had bad games back-to-back too many times. Coaches and players.
Aaron, you had your battles with Urlacher, obviously, over the years in Chicago. I know it's completely different defenses, but now Roquan Smith has been around for a few years and kind of coming into his own. Any similarities, differences in terms of battling with him on the other side of the ball?
I feel like Roquan kind of has been coming into his own ever since he got in the league. I was happy. I remember week one, he'd kind of held out. I think we played him week one his rookie year, I believe. Is that right? Was that 18? Yeah. What? It was 18. And he didn't start, I don't believe, or maybe he started. He was on kind of a play count, and we were all pretty happy about that because he's a difference maker. He's a sideline-to-sideline linebacker. He's an excellent rusher against backs on his blitzes. He can cover. He can do it all. So he's one of the top guys in his position for sure. I like the way he goes about his business. He's very, kind of low-key, classy, plays hard to the whistle. Every now and then you hear a little trash talk, which he's good at. But yeah, a lot of respect for Roquan. He's a talented guy. Wouldn't have minded if he had gotten traded in training camp, but a lot of respect for him.
The Bears named Lucas as their only honorary captain this week. Where does he rank in your time here of your favorite come-up stories for teammates?
Oh, he's got to be right near the top for sure. Just the way that he battled, getting cut and being on the border many times, being in trade conversations and being down on himself and up and down confidence-wise, and then starting for us at multiple positions and playing a big role for us at times last year. Excellent teammate, great guy in the locker room, guy you love having on your team, total tough guy, and just an all-around good human being.
Aaron, what's your outlook on Amari Rodgers and where he fits on this offense? Because last year he was pretty non-existent, and then last week he didn't get out there for an offensive snap.
Yeah, he's returning for us right now. That's all I got on that.
Aaron, I understand you feel like you have to play great every game throughout your career. You said the interception was dumb, right? Is that what you said after the game?
Yeah, it was.
And you said you should have thrown away the ball that you fumbled.
Yeah.
Is the margin for error when you don't have Devontae, you don't have the established tackles the way you normally have? Is the margin for error for you a little bit smaller, and do you have to be even more on point and even more demanding than you normally are of yourself?
I mean, I don't really look at it that way. It's more the standard that I've set. I didn't lose a fumble all last year, and hadn't thrown a pick in a division game in, I don't know, a while. So that's kind of the standard that I hold myself to, regardless of who's out there with us. So that's why that's frustrating. I don't look at it as Tay's not here, I got to, do even more, play perfect football. I've just always held myself to a standard of taking care of the football, and that wasn't good enough on Sunday.
The standard's the standard, but with this patience that we've been talking about with the rookies, does that force you to in any way change the way that you play, or you just keep it same style and let them catch up when they catch up?
I mean, I got to play the same way. I don't play the way I played in 2011. It's, I got to play on time, and guys got to get open. So no, I'm not going to change the way I play. We just have to realize who's out there, who we're throwing to, and how we're going to actually make some hay and score some points.
Not you've had a few days to sit on what happened on Sunday to kind of flip the page. What are the building blocks? What did you like from Sunday that you can carry forward to this week and beyond?
Well, I was happy to get Bobby back out there. I think that's something really good for us, and to get him involved and have a few catches was important. Obviously, getting 28 and 33 in the game at the same time was good, because we can expand that package even more and do a lot more out of our 21H stuff. I think we learned that 89 can still play at a really high level and probably needs some more snaps. And when he's out there, we can really run the football well. So we got to keep finding ways to get him on the field, and that's going to allow us, I think, to get some shots down the field against teams that are going to play so soft. Is you got to run the ball efficiently, and then you got to have some good action off of that.